Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about the top 10 Dungeons & Dragons commentators on YouTube. All right, so I want to say a few things about this list first. So everybody on this list is, in my opinion, a Dungeons & Dragons commentator. Now, I define that as the content on their channel is good if you are a Dungeons & Dragons player or a Dungeon Master. Also, at some point, these people have discussed Dungeons & Dragons at length. That may be as somewhere within their channel's feed, okay? So some of these Dungeons & Dragons commentators that I'm going to list, they talked a lot about Dungeons & Dragons in the past, and now they use that Dungeons & Dragons knowledge to run other games, right? Or you might have people who have played other games, and now they're playing Dungeons & Dragons. So everybody on this list has commentated on Dungeons & Dragons at some point, okay? Also, the list, I'm not going to bury the lead here. I'm gonna list the very, very best first, and then the worst 10th, okay? The worst would be down at number 10. Now, when I say they're the worst Dungeons & Dragons commentators at number 10, that still means there's probably 100 or 200 Dungeons & Dragons commentators or more that have channels that did not make the list. So the 10th is not worst as in they're not good, they're just the 10th on the list, right? And the people from 1 to 9 I would consider slightly better than them. All right, so just trying to explain how the list works. Let's get into it. All right. Also, real quick, I'm going to say one word as a highlight for why I think they are on this list, okay? All right, number 1, with a bullet, is Nerdarchy. And Nerdarchy, it's David Friant and Ted Adams and Nathan Riggins. And the reason they are on this list is genuineness. I believe that their love for the game and their love for Dungeons & Dragons, every edition, except 4th. There's not a lot of love between them for 4th edition. Is really extremely genuine, and even more genuine than their love for the game has been a love for the Dungeons & Dragons community. I think they've really done a lot to really open up the community. I think they're bringing incredible coverage at a very, very high rate. They do the technical stuff. They do really, really solid reviews of the Unarched Arcana at a highly, highly technical level. Honestly, a technical level that I could not do. I'm just not that strong at builds. I've always been more on the narrative side. But they can do both. They can talk about the narrative of the game. They can talk about the technical side of the game. Nerdarchy.com is definitely number 1 on my list for Dungeons & Dragons YouTube commentators. Number 2, DawnforgedCast, Andrew Armstrong. And the reason he is on this list is he is a trailblazer. I think he macheted his way through the jungle of Dungeons & Dragons, the jungle, and that a lot of people who are doing Dungeons & Dragons commentating right now are following the path that he hacked through with a machete. I really believe that he built the real Dungeons & Dragons commentating community with the hard work he did. I think he was one of the first guys who went pro and talked about it and showed the path and showed others how to do it. I don't think anybody else in the community went pro and was as open with how that was done as he was. And I also consider Andrew Armstrong the first professional dungeon master. And I did an entire video on that. You can check that out. I would say I really like Andrew Armstrong because I think he's a great example of how you can make mistakes in the past, and if you are persistent and you look at yourself and you make some adjustments, you can move on to bigger and better things, and you can shine brighter than you ever did before. And I think Andrew Armstrong is doing a great job out there, and he's definitely one of my favorite Dungeons & Dragons YouTube commentators. Number 3, QuestingBeast. I have to say, this guy is very, very new. I have not been watching him that long, probably only for about a month or 2, right? But his level of coverage, here's the reason. One highlight word for why he's on this list: books. He loves books. and he has taken the time to do a great flip-through setup. He has mastered the art of taking people through a tour of a book. And books are the heart of Dungeons and Dragons. They really are, they're absolutely critical to what we do. And it is so clear in just the way he handles the books, the variety of books he has, the way he presents these books, that he has a love for the physical books that really manifest what we do. And I have a tremendous respect for that. And I think what he is doing is so needed in our hobby. And he's number 3. I think he's he's the 3rd best Dungeons & Dragons commentator on the entire on YouTube, bar none. Also, he is I will say this right now, he is flat out the best. He is a paladin for OSR. He is a champion for old school rules. And I will tell you, before I started watching QuestingBeast, I thought that OSR community was really a bog where grognards lived. And man, was I wrong. He has done such an amazing job of showing the beauty and the innovation and the excitement that still exists in the OSR. Man, that dude is a lawful good champion for OSR. And QuestingBeast, he's absolutely amazing. All right, number 4, Pair of Geeks. All right, Pair of Geeks is actually 2 people. There is Dungeon Girl Becky Rose and Rogue DM. And the reason why they are on this list is joy. They have the most joyful content when talking about Dungeons & Dragons as anybody out there. Becky Rose is brilliant. She brings a sense of humor and just joyfulness to her coverage of Dungeons & Dragons and a lot of other great tabletop role-playing games. But, all of it is, in my opinion, foundationally coming from a strong dungeon master. So Becky Rose is a really strong dungeon master that has taken her skills to additional new games, and she's just really, really a very special member of our community. And I think the joy she brings is just, you don't see that in any other channel. Really, really unique. All right, number 5, Fistful of Dice, Matt Click. He's now involved with Absolute Tabletop. I've watched him for a very long time. He has and actually, I think the reason he's on here is collaboration. So Matt Click is on this list specifically for collaboration. He has shown a path that none of the other Dungeons & Dragons commentators have, which is how do I take other YouTubers who are talking about the same thing and combine our powers like the Super Friends, and you could tell he's been able to produce more, and I think that's what he really brings to the Dungeons & Dragons community. And I will say this too, I think he's really strong as a Dungeons & Dragons commentator, and just the way he's able to express himself. He's easy to listen to. I think he does great content. He does fantastic live games. By the way, sorry to go back to Pair of Geeks. Both Rogue DM and Becky Rose, they have some fantastic live games. Their live coverage is really strong. Sorry, back to Matt Click. Sorry. Matt Click, he does some great prep videos, and he writes as well. He really brings a lot there. He's got great live coverage. He's got content on how to be a strong dungeon master for prepping, and also he's very open with designing new rules and designing tabletop role-playing games, which I think, again, it's just a really cool thing that he's bringing to the table that others aren't. Number 6, all right, is Rune Slinger. Oh man, Rune Slinger is really, really strong. Now his discussion of Dungeons & Dragons, he's absolutely rooted in Dungeons & Dragons. He absolutely played Dungeons & Dragons, but his content has shifted over to a lot of science fiction games, and he has some amazing Star Wars coverage. But again, when if you're concerned about watching RuneSlinger because he's not talking about Dungeons and Dragons, oh man, is he talking about Dungeons and Dragons. In that, the way he runs his Star Wars games, the level of quality that he brings to his specific videos, his unboxings, all these kind of things. He has a strong foundation in Dungeons and Dragons, and I watch him to make myself a better dungeon master. And often I get ideas for being a better dungeon master from him on other games than I get from people who are talking directly about Dungeons and Dragons. And what is the one highlight word? And I hope this isn't insulting to anyone on this list, but RuneSlinger is crazy intelligent. I really like to be taxed with words I don't know, and he will drop some 50-cent words, and he's not afraid to use them. And I like that personally. I know not everybody does, but I think he's the most intelligent coverage of Dungeons and Dragons content, and how to be a good dungeon master, and how and really how to approach being a member of our community with intelligence that's out there. He's really something unique. All right, number 7, LPJ, Lewis Porter Jr. Lewis Porter Jr., he created Haven, City of Violence, and he has created a tremendous amount of Pathfinder third-party content. The reason he is on this list is creation. This guy knows more about layout and art and creating an awesome-looking book that really can quite directly be used for Dungeons and Dragons, even though it's on the Pathfinder side, than anybody in the community. He really knows how to produce content. So from the idea of creating a book, this guy has done more from the creation perspective than anybody else, and I think he's just a solid Dungeons and Dragons commentator, YouTube commentator. Really like his content a lot. I think he's a really important member of our community, and I'm a big fan. So number 8, Chalice in Chains. Okay, and Chalice in Chains, he's got a really cool channel, and he came up through Dungeons and Dragons, and where he shifted now is he talks a lot about fate, right? And he also does Star Wars, right? And in addition to that, he's involved in some of the most unique, and the reason he's on this list is setting. I think his games and the character creation he goes over is some of the most unique settings of anybody who is doing Dungeons and Dragons commentary on YouTube today. And that is, one of them is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, just really unique, unusual settings. And I think he has a better handle on how to get the most out of settings. And also, he has a really strong understanding of player agency and how to get player agency into your game. And if you want to be a great dungeon master, listen to him on player agency, because I think player agency is a fundamental component of 5th edition, and he can really help you get there as far as actually getting that content within your game. All right, so number 9 on my list for Dungeons and Dragons YouTube commentator is Christiana Ellis. All right, now Christiana Ellis is a nerd queen. All right, she runs live Dungeons and Dragons games, live tabletop role-playing games, and she has some really unique guests on. Jared Axelrod is one of them, and I'm not sure a lot of people know this, but Christiana Ellis is a founding member of the podcast community. And there are literally tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe over 1 million podcasts that have come out over the last 10 or 15 years. And she did a lot to make that community more friendly and more vibrant. And now, with her running her tabletop role-playing games online live and being able to see those and seeing all that energy and all that hearty communication that she used to use for awesome podcasts, I'm so glad that she's part of the Dungeons & Dragons community, and that her channel now stands as as kind of a beacon to say this is how you run a game, right? This is how you can be a great dungeon master, just by example. Like, I think she is out there doing more. She commentates more with what she does than what she says, which I think is really, really cool. She just really directly shows this is the way a game should be run. She's got an incredible imagination. She's an author, a really skilled author, and I think we're just incredibly fortunate to have her in there. Now, what's my highlight word for why she's on this list? Transparency. So she's very transparent, and one of the things is all of these channels, all of these channels, they talk about tabletop role-playing games, they talk about Dungeons and Dragons, but they talk about more than that, right? Well, what else more do they talk about, right? Well, the extra content on Christiana Ellis's channel is just way better than a lot of other channels, in that there's wisdom on Christiana Ellis's channel. She does this series called 5 Minutes More, and she just talks about her life. And it's just so transparent and so, what's the right word? Like, it's hard to even describe it, but I really feel like she has a good way. The reason she's a great dungeon master is because she's a great human being. And if you watch her extra content, you're going to see that. And when I think about this Dungeons and Dragons YouTube commentator list, it makes me humbled what a beautiful community we have. And it is really, and the people who are in it are just so special and giving of their time, and we're really fortunate to have these people. The last, number 10, great Dungeons and Dragons YouTube commentator is G3XE. Okay, G3XE is a smaller channel, but the reason G3XE is on here is Dungeons and Dragons has a very distinct source, and that is war games. So Gary Gygax came from a wargaming background, and G3XE is really unique in that he has a really high knowledge of Warhammer 40K, which is the #1 war game in the world right now, and then also he has a really solid understanding of Dungeons and Dragons. So he not only understands our source material, Dungeons and Dragons, our core material, but he knows the source material that was built off of. So which is, he knows the current war games, and he can bring ideas and mix ideas in from wargaming the way Gary did back in the early 70s. And that is an incredibly unique thing. So war games is the highlight word for him. So that is my list of Dungeons and Dragons YouTube commentators from the top 10 Dungeons and Dragons YouTube commentators. I'm curious, would you have put anybody on this list in a different position? Or are there people that you listen to that you think are great Dungeons and Dragons YouTube commentators that didn't make the list? I would love to hear your answers. Thank you.